Annette. So if I get more names for where the two.
Okay, unfortunately, learning should be in that schus. Hashem should protect us and them.
If you want to put everyone's microphones, so it just.
Oh, let's do that. One second. Okay. So Gufa, halfway down Chafav Amud Aleph. Gufa was taught before. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Eimer ein madlikin b'tzari. Reb Shimon ben Elazar said that you can't use tzari. Tzari, we said, is a sap, a balsam sap. Okay. We say in the Keteris, it's a sap that drips from the balsam tree. Apparently, there's different ways of getting it out. This is one that drips from the balsam tree, or it comes from the balsam tree. Now, is there a connection between these two statements? Could be yes. First of all, we know Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says that you can't use the sap as a fuel for your Shabbos candles. And he also says that what is the sap? It comes from a tree. It comes from the balsam tree. We'll see shortly. Rabbi Shmuel says anything that comes from the tree, you can't use to light with. Now, it must be the wood of the tree. Rabbi Shmuel ben Breika Rabbi Shmuel ben Breika says you can only use things that come from the fruit. Now, Rabbi Shmuel himself, not Rabbi Shmuel ben Breika, it's Rabbi Shmuel ben Ben Elisha. Is that his name? Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. He held that you can't use fish oil or itron, or of course, sorry, because it doesn't come from the fruit of the tree. The only thing you can use is oils that come from fruits, like, for example, olive oil, or other fruits. I don't know, walnut. Anything that can come from that comes from the fruit. Rabbi Shmuel bar Breika says, one second, I said that's wrong. Rabbi Shmuel bar Breika says, Rabbi Shmuel bar Breika says it has to come from the fruit. Rabbi Shmuel himself said the negative. He said that anything that comes from the wood that you can't use. Okay. Tarfon says it's very strict. You can only use olive oil. Well, if you remember, we learned before, Tarfon says someone that has a lot of fields, that's called the rich man, 100 vineyards, 100 fields, workers. Amad Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri al Raglov, Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri stood up. And he says, Mayasu Anshe Bavel She'ein Lahem Elashem and Shumshim. What should people in Babylonia do? They only have sesame oil. They don't have olive oil. Mayasu Anshe Modai She'ein Lahem Elashem and Agozim. Media, they only have walnut oil. Mayasu Anshe Alexandria She'ein Lahem Elashem and Tznenis. They only have radish oil. I looked it up. Radish oil is actually coming from the seed of one of the radishes. It's not from the actual radish. And Mayasu Anse Kaputki Shein Lehem Leikach V'Leikach Ala Neft. What should the people from Kaputkia do? They don't have this or that. They only have nafta. Now, yesterday we learned that there was a white nafta, My father sent me an article. I think it was from Rabbi Steinsaltz's daily comments on the Daf. And it was like a surprise that they had oil drilling. Naphtha apparently comes from like oil on the ground. Or at least the white naphtha, they were able to purify the, he said that we really don't have the references to that they were able to get that sort of oil. Other than this, later, it was like a big chiddush that they used it during the Crusades. It's 600, 700 years later. Well, if it's Tanoim, then it's 1,000 years later. They had naphtha for some fires or whatever. It was like a chiddush that they were able to get it. So they only have this neft or naphtha. Ella ein lecha ella ma shemer chachamim madlikin. Don't be more strict than the sages. Sages said certain things that you can't use because they don't burn well, and that's what we should hold by. Don't add anything to that. Now it says madlikim b'shem medagim u'be'itron. You can use fish oil and you can use itron. Itron, we said, was a product of Zephys. Reb Shimon Shazuri Yomer madlikim b'shem and pekuis u'beneft. Reb Shimon Shazuri says you can use.
Art Scroll says that itron comes from a pitch.
A pitch. Okay, good. Does it have a translation for itron itself?
No,
it just says a product of it.
Yeah, it just says.
Okay, so Zephys, I guess, would be translated as pitch, and itron is a product of that. And ubeneft, and you can also, I'm sorry, shemen pekuis is oil that comes from a gourd, and ubeneft, and from this naphtha. Sumchas aimer kol hayetzim min habasar ein madlikin bai, ella b'shemen dagim. Can't use any oil that comes from flesh. That means any chalev. The only oil that comes from a living being would be fish oil. Now, the first opinion, before we had Reb Shimon Shazuri, we said madlikim b'shem dagim u'be'itron, that you were allowed to use fish oil. Sumchas says you can't use any oil but fish, any oil that comes from flesh but fish oil. The Gemara right away asks Sumchas hainu tanakama. This permissibility of using fish oil but no other oil that comes from flesh, that sounds like the Tanakama's opinion. So you said that in the beginning, Sumchas is supposed to be arguing, but it sounds like he's saying the same thing. The Gemara says, it could be Nayu to Rav Bruna Amarav, V'loi Mesaimi. There could be a difference between the first opinion and Sumchas, and that opinion would be Rav Bruna Amarav, which we had mentioned a few times, and he says that if you mix other oil into one of the oils that's not permissible, then you're allowed to use that mixture. If you mix a kosher oil with a non-kosher oil, then you can use that mixture. Now, what is he saying here? So it could be what he means is like this, that one of the opinions, either madlikim b'shem and dagim, which is the Tanakama, or Sumchas that says you can use shem and dagim, maybe means to say that you can't actually use shemen dagim. You can use shemen dagim that's mixed with other oils. And the other opinion says that you can use shemen dagim straight. And it's the other forbidden types of oils that would be permissible within a mixture. So one of them is accepting Rav Bruna Amarav for other oils, and one of them is accepting Rav Bruna Amarav for shemen dagim. That's a possibility. That's a possibility of how to learn this. For which case will we accept Rav Bruna Amarav? So that's the machlekes between the Tanakam and Sumchas B'Valei Masami, but we didn't determine which one holds what. Okay. We're about to start a sugya regarding what's considered a garment, what type of material is considered a garment. It's going to take us through until the end of the daf. We'll try to get to the end of it. Let's see. Not till the end of today's daf, till the end of tomorrow's daf. We're in middle. We've already finished almost one side of today's daf. So it starts like this. Tanya, Reb Shimon ben Elazar Eimer. Reb Shimon ben Elazar is a student of Reb Meir. He says, any product of wood, ein by mishum shalish al shalish. Okay, now in Hebrew grammar, normally, if it ends with a kamatz hey, it's considered feminine, a feminine word. It's, mora is the feminine, is the woman. Morea would be different, but mora is so the numbers from 3 to 9 are the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. So shlosha is actually zachar. Shalish is nekeva. So when we use the word kalayetzim and eitz, ein by mishum shalish al shalish, that is a nekeva, a feminine term, and it's referring to etzbais, which is finger size. So anything that comes from a tree doesn't have the laws of a cloth, that if a small cloth, a small garment, that could be susceptible to tumah, those small cloths are 3 finger breadths, by 3 finger breadths. Etzba'is, which is a feminine word. So shalish is feminine. It's not like the rest of the Hebrew language. So it doesn't have that rule. If it comes from a tree, it means it's not considered a garment. It doesn't become tamei, even though it's 3 by 3 fingers. What would this be? If you can make some material from wood, bark, whatever. And of course, you can use it for schach. It's perfect. Schach on a sukkah needs to be grown from the ground, and it can't be makabel tama. So here we have it. We have a product, a type of cloth that comes from a tree. It grows from the ground, and it's not makabel tama. It's perfect for schach. You can make something like that. Cotton, canvas, Rashi gives those examples. Okay. Now, this is going to mess us up if you're planning on using a canvas to cover your sukkah with, if there's a limitation on it. We just said that if it's 3 by 3, then it's going to be acceptable. 3 by 3 fingers. Maybe if it gets larger, it's not going to be. We have to see. If it gets larger than that, it's not going to be acceptable. Okay, chutz mipishtan, except for flax. Flax, we know, is called a tree, that we know from Rachav. She brought the men up to the attic, and she hid them in the atze pishtan. We know it's called a tree. And nevertheless, it's considered a cloth. That's the opinion of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Amar Abaya. Abaya, the Amira, on the last word of Chavav, Amid Aleph, 26a. We're going to 26b. Abaya says, and it's common for him to do this, he says, Reb Shimon ben Elazar, v'tana debei Rabbi Shmuel amar davar echad. It's common for Abaya to make lists of Tanaim and to say that they all hold the same amount. We have in Sukkah, he does it with eight Tanaim. Over here, he just does with 2. This is a light one. He says that these 2 Tanaim say the same thing. Reb Shimon ben Elazar, v'tana debei Rabbi Shmuel, they say the same thing. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Adaman. Reb Shimon ben Elazar, we already said that any product of wood is not considered a cloth. And Tana debei Rabbi Shmuel Maihi. What is the Tana debei Rabbi Shmuel that says the same thing? The Tana debei Rabbi Shmuel was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel. Hayol v'nemr begadim b'teres stam. It says several times in the Torah the word garment, beged. Now, it says it by the tumah of sheretz, if it becomes tamei. It says it by Tumas Meis, by Beged, they call Kliyar, anything that's in the tent becomes Tameh. Other Tumas, it says by Tzitzis, it says a Beged. Now, and it doesn't describe what the Beged is in all of those places, it just says a garment. However, there is one place where it defines it. What is that place? By Tzaras. It says Tzemer Upishtim. Over there it says if Tzaras goes on a garment, Tzaras is a spot of leprosy, it goes on a garment. Over there the Torah defines what the garment, what the material is, and it says wool or linen. So Mala Halon Tzemer Upishtim, Afkol Tzemer Upishtim. Just like over there we have a definition, so too the rest of the Torah we now have a definition of what a beged is, and it's only wool or linen, which would mean that all other garments are not considered garments. Okay, that's a biased statement. He says that Reb Shimon ben Elazar and Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel say the same thing. Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel say that it's only wool and linen that could be a garment. And Reb Shimon ben Elazar said anything that comes from a tree is not a garment unless it's linen. It means not cotton. I know they left out silk. Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel clearly would say silk is not a garment, but I don't know what Shimon ben Elazar would say. He didn't talk about it. I know wool would be, but cotton would not be, and other types of cloths would not be exactly like the Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel, but silk wasn't put in here. Okay, that's a biased statement. He says that they hold the same thing and he puts it together. Rava says no. He says that you're mixing two things together. What's the expression? There's something mitbarsht. You're missing. You're mixing two things together. It's no connection. He says shleisha al shleisha b'shar begadim mikabinayu. There's actually a machlekes there. And shleisha al shleisha means 3 tfachim. Shleisha is a lashon zachar, so it's not talking about etzba ois, which ends in a saf. It's talking about tfachim, which ends in a yud mem, which means that it's a masculine. So shleisha, remember by numbers it's the opposite. Shleisha al shleisha b'shar begadim mikabinayu. We're dealing with a 3 by 3 tfachim garment that's much larger. 3 by 3 tfachim is probably a foot. Let's say a tefach is 4 inches. A foot by a foot garment, that's the difference between them. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Islay. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said that only those tiny garments, those tiny little cloths, like the size of a patch, that type of garment is what Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar holds is not a garment if it's not linen, if it comes from a tree. But once you get a larger size garment, shleisha al shleisha, tfachim, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar would agree that if it's made out of cotton, it's a garment. However, Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel, Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel says no. Garment is only, I don't care what size it is, the garment is only tzemer upishtim, like it says in the Torah. So once you get to larger sizes, you would have a problem using canvas or a cotton sheet for your schach, according to Reb Shimon ben Elazar, because that's considered a garment. It's makabel tama, and you can't use it because it becomes a real garment. According to Rabbi Shmuel, it could be fine. Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel, it's not a garment. It doesn't become tameh. Possibly. Okay. So that's what Rav is arguing. The Kuli Alma Mias Shalish al Shalish B'Tzemer Upishtim Mitame B'Negoim Minolan. Everyone would agree that when it comes to wool and linen, if it's 3 etzbais by 3 etzbais, that tiny cloth the size of a patch, everyone would agree that that does become tameh. If it's wool and linen, wool or linen. Where do we know that from? The Tanya was taught in a brisa. It says beged. It says a garment. Eily beged I only know if it's a real garment. Shalish al shalish minayin. How do you know if it's tiny like a patch? Those little cloths. How do you know that also becomes tummy? Talmud Leimar v'habeged. Okay, there's some extra letters. Extra letters is usually including. It's including even that size of a patch, that little cloth. Ve'ema l'Rabbi shleisha al shleisha. Maybe it's coming to include a garment, a cloth that's 3 tfachim, shleisha tfachim, right? Maybe it's coming to include something larger. How do you know it's coming to include something so small? It says lav kal v'chaimer. Don't I have a kal v'chaimer? You don't need a pasuk, extra words in a pasuk to tell me that shleisha tfachim should become tamei. Hash the shesi ve'erev metamei. If the wool or linen itself, that's in a ball of thread, that becomes tamei. Shesi ve'erev. Those are two parts of the loom, of the thread that's put on the loom. There's the I forget which one is which, woof and the weft, warp and weft. One of them is put on the loom itself and tied tight. I think that's the erev. And then the shesi, I think, goes back and forth. I don't remember. Am I correct? The shesi goes back and forth on a I forget what it's called, a shuttle. They throw it back and forth. Okay. So if those balls of thread themselves become tamei, or just when it's in, even before it's woven, so for sure, if it's 3 by 3 tvachim, for sure it becomes tamei. The Gemara says, well, if you had a kal v'chaimer based on the shesi and the erev, those balls of yarn or thread, that they'll become tamei just like that with tsaras. So ihachi shalish al shalish nami leisa b'kal v'chaimer. So then why do you need the pasuk for 3 etzbais by 3 etzbais, the size of a patch? That should also be included in the kal v'chaimer. Ela shleisha al shleisha dechazu bein la'ashirim bein la'aniyim masi b'kal v'chaimer. Shalish al shalish la'aniyim hu dechazin la'ashirim lechazin le'asa b'kal v'chaimer. 3 tfachim is already the size of a garment that anyone would use, whether rich or poor. But that small garment is only something that would be used by the poor. That's not really considered a garment yet. For that, I need a kal v'chaimer. It's not a garment across the board.
When you're saying to use, what do you mean by using?
Well, I think what it means is that they would...
You can use them as multiple pieces attached together.
Yeah, or as a patch to add it on. In other words, this is already 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim is already the size of a cloth that could be used for something substantial, that anyone would use it. But that little patch, that is the type of cloth that would only be used by a poor person. So that is not a real garment. Then I need an extra word of a pasuk to tell me that it's going to be accepted. Time of the kasvakra, alay kasvakra, alay gamrinan b'kal v'chaimer.
When did we switch from 3 fingers to 3 tfachim?
So I'm trying to give the rules for that so that you should see, because that's a very confusing thing in Gemara. You mamish don't know what, unless, Rashi helps you usually. But we're just reading the actual text. It doesn't tell you what we're talking about. If it's Lashon Nekeva, like Shalish al Shalish, then that would be Etzba'is. Etzba'is, because that's, if it's Shleisha al Shleisha, which is Lashon Zachar, then that's Tfachim. That would be the rule. Now, it gets really confusing if you switch to Amais, because then you would again use Shalish al Shalish. But usually you don't have Shalish Amais. When it comes to cloth, we're using either 3 fingers or Tfachim. So, okay. So now the Gemara says, "Ve'ema l'Rabbi shleisha al shleisha b'shar begadim." Gemara throws a question at us that we're going to have to deal with. Rabbi Shmuel held that it's only tzemer upishtim is considered a cloth. says Vahabeged. It's Tzemer Pishtim, right, in one place. But then we have the pasuk Vahabeged that's coming to include something else. Well, what's it coming to include? We said it's coming to include a small cloth as well. It will become tamei. The Gemara is asking, maybe it's coming to tell us not a small cloth, but a regular size cloth, shleisha tvachim by shleisha tvachim, but we're talking about other material. Maybe the inclusion is including other materials, not the size. So Amakra, beged tzemer pishtim. Beged tzemer pishtim and midyachin elai. He says, no, that's rejected right away. No, we have that for that. We have a pasuk that limited that, and it's no, you can't include any other materials. Ve'ema, but say, ki imit mishalish al shalish, avos shleish al shleish metami. Maybe it's only excluding any other materials from a small cloth, but if it's a regular size cloth, maybe that should be included. Where it says trei miyutiksiv, we have twice. It says 2 times beged tzemer oy pishtim. It's actually 2 separate psukim, I think, but both by tzaras. It says beged tzemer oy pishtim. Zoistaris negatras beged tzemer oy pishtim. We have an extra exclusion there, so we know that no other material would be there. Chad lemutim mishalish al shalish. Okay. The Gemara says, okay, so we're with no other material here. Ulerava da Amar shleisha al shleisha b'shar begadim mika binayu l'Reb Shimon ben Elazar Islay l'Tana b'Reb Shmuel Leslay shleisha al shleisha b'shar begadim minalei. If you just gave us 2 exclusions, that there is no other material that could become tamei. That's great according to Abaya. Abaya holds that Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar hold the same thing, that it's only wool and linen. That's fine. However, Rava said that they don't hold the same thing. There's actually a machlekes, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar and Rabbi Shmuel. And that machlekes is regarding a cloth that's 3 by 3 tfachim. Shleisha al shleisha, where Reb Shimon ben Elazar held that even if it's other material like canvas or cotton, that is considered a garment. Well, where does he know that from? If you just said that the pasuk says twice, tzemer pishtim, that excludes all other material. So we say nafka me oy beged. We're only doing this according to Rava that says that Reb Shimon ben Elazar doesn't hold exactly like Rabbi Shmuel. And he says that there are other materials. So he says, oy beged. Okay. Oy beged, or a garment, that extra word is teaching me something else. The Tanya, as it was taught in a Brisa, Rashi is unhappy with the word the Tanya in the text. He says if Rav is able to quote a Brisa, then how's Abaya going to argue on the Brisa? So he takes out the word the Tanya. He says the Tanya le garsinan. Just notice that on the top line. Okay, but he said, let's say it says it. The Tanya, beged, ein li ela beged. A garment, I would only know a garment. Shleisha al shleisha b'shar begadim minayin. How do you know 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim and other types of materials? Talmud Daimar, oy beged. Okay, we have a clear brisa. Well, let's say it's just a pasuk. We have a clear pasuk. Oy beged. It's a limit from a pasuk. We have an extra word oy. That tells me that other materials also become tummy. Well, whether you take it when it's a brisa or not, they have an extra word in the pasuk. What does Abaya do with that? Abaya says that there are no other materials that become tummy just because they're the size. But Abaya, hi oy beged my avadle. What does Abaya do with that? He said Rabbi Shmuel and Shimon ben Elazar hold the same thing. So Abaya says, "Mi boile le Rabbi shalish al shalish b'tzemro pishtim demetame b'shratzim." He throws something at us that we weren't discussing. We were saying that we do have a garment that's very small. It's 3 fingers by 3 fingers. And that's considered a garment if it's wool or linen. And if that's the material it's made from. And we said it becomes tummy, and we have that by tzaras, that there's a spot of leprosy by tzaras. How big does a leprosy have to be? The size of an adasha, the size of a gris, the size of a gris. A gris is a half a bean. We say a gris is about the size of a dime. And we had in ksumim, stains. We said that they needed to be the size of a gris. That would be the size. It's larger than the insect. We know it's not the insect. Remember all of that stuff. Okay, so here we have the cloth. And we said that even if it's very small, it becomes tummy if it's wool or linen. But how do we know that it will become tummy not from tzaras, but that it will become tummy from a sheretz, tumah of a sheretz? So Abaya tells me that we learn it from oibeged, or a cloth. That small cloth also can contract tumah. It's considered a beged for shratzim as well. For Rava, how does Rava know that this small cloth could also be used, could also become tameh from a sheretz? He just told me that the oy beged doesn't tell me a small cloth. The oy beged tells me a larger cloth for other materials, according to Reb Shimon ben Elazar. It says, "V'Rava gali rachmana gabi nagoyim v'uadin l'shratzim." You don't need according to Rava, you don't need a special pasuk. Once it's a garment, it's a garment. It becomes tameh for tzaras, it becomes tummy for sheretz. Why do you need an extra pasuk to tell me sheretz? Abaya, what does Abaya do? It's a good point Rava just gave. If it's a garment, it's a garment. Ikala mifrach, he says no. Manel in the goyim shkein shesiveirif metamibem. No, Negoyim has types of tumah on things that aren't even a full garment, even if it's just the shesiveirif, even if it's just the yarn that's ready to be used to make a garment, that could also become tumah. The yarn on the loom could become tummy. So the small cloth could become tummy by a sheretz. It needs to be an actual garment. This isn't big enough. The idach, what does Rava say? Abaya has a good point that by negoim you have special types of tumah. Maybe it doesn't apply to a sheretz. Isal kadaitach, Rava says, if you would think negoim chamiri, that negoim is more strict, then lichtev rachmana gabi shratzim v'leisu negoim inayu. Abaya is trying to say that I need an extra. Really, negoim is more strict, so therefore I need an extra pasuk by sheretz to tell me that it's not more strict, and sheretz is the same thing. The Rabbi says, if that's an issue to you, then why didn't you say this halacha of Oya Beged or Tzemer Pishtim, wherever we're learning all of those limudim, say it by shratzim, and I would automatically have the more strict one, which is Nagayim. What Rav is claiming to Abaya is what you're doing is you're attributing it only to Nagayim, to Tzaras, Nega Tzaras, Nagayim is Tzaras. And then I need an extra pasuk to include shratzim. That's what Abaya is doing. And so Rav is claiming that if you actually need to do that, you could have avoided it by just putting all of those limudim by the sheretz, and then automatically I would have known tzaras, which is more strict. Well, he has a good point. So what Rav is really trying to say is that negoim is not more strict than shratzim, and if it's a beged for negoim, it's a beged for shratzim. V'idach, what does Abaya say? He says negoim is shratzim layasu. If it would have written these limudim by a sheretz, I wouldn't have learned tzaras from it. There is one strictness by sheretz, which is even more strict than by tzaras, and that's the size. The size of a sheretz could be the size of a bean, the size of a lentil, an adasha. Adasha is like a small lentil. Tzaras is much larger than that. It is the size of a gris. So sheretz, turns out, has a stringency. Abaye says, you're Rava, you're claiming to me that if tsaras is more strict than shratzim, then let the Torah write these halachas by shratzim and I would know automatically tsaras. I wouldn't have known automatically tsaras because there is one stringency in shratzim, which would have held me back from saying that tsaras is the same. And that stringency is that a sheretz could be smaller than the size of a tsaras. And it would have said that it only applies to shratzim, it doesn't apply to tsaras. So therefore, it says it by tsaras. And then I need a special pasuk to tell me that it applies by shratzim as well. Okay, Amar Abaye. Abaye says, Hai Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, mapik mi'idach Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. Now the word mapik, or nafik, nafak, means it's the Aramaic translation of the word yatsa or yaitse. Sometimes it wants to say you're not yaitse. It says loy nafak, like loy nafak chiyuva. You weren't yaitse, you're chiyuv. Nafak means to go out, like he left the room. Would say nafak. So Abaye here is saying that the Tana de Rabbi Shmuel is different than a different Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. Okay. Our Tana de Rabbi Shmuel held that it needs to be wool or linen, or otherwise it's not a cloth. This Tana de Rabbi Shmuel says, the Tana de Rabbi Shmuel beged, when it says in the Torah beged, Eily ela beged tzemer upishtim, I would only think it's wool or linen. Minayin l'rabbis tzemer gemalim. How do you know also that wool from a camel? I think that's cashmere. Tzemer anavim, wool from a
Rabbit.
A rabbit, right? Naitz shalizim, or if it comes from a goat, it's not a lot of hair from that. Vahashirin, is that silk?
Yeah, my Gemara says silk. Regular.
Kelach, what's your translation of kelach?
Silk, and it says,
Another type of silk.
not sure. Wait, I'm reading.
Vahasirikin. How do you know these other materials? What do you have over there?
I don't know. The notes are just talking about Taisa's question on it.
Oh, so in the actual English translation, does it just say the Hebrew words in italics or something?
It's Palak
Okay.
silk. But it is a different type of silk.
Okay. My friend used the Yiddish Mishnayos. He was learning Zraim. So they said over there all different types of plants. So the Yiddish doesn't translate to plants. He would say Amin Gavix. The whole Seder Zraim was just on Min Gavix. Everything, some sort of growth, a type of something. Okay. So types of silk. How do you know other materials as well? Well, this is a problem because Rabbi Shmuel said it's only tzemer before. Abaye is saying this Rabbi Shmuel is going to be different. Talmud Leimer Oy Beged says Oy. Or that tells me that it's including more things. Okay. So Abaye says that this must have been to students in the house of Rabbi Shmuel. They said different things. Rava Amar Ki les lei lahach tana de Rabbi Shmuel b'shar begadim shalish al shalish, but shleish al shleish islay. Rava says I can resolve all of this because I said before that there's a difference between the size of the garment. So it could be that the Tana Rabbi Shmuel before said only on the small garment, which is 3 fingers by 3 fingers, that would be only by wool and linen. But the other types of materials, those are materials once you become 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, which is a handbreadth, 3 handbreadth. That could be an answer. The Gemara says, 1 second. It's like pulling a fast one on us because it says, it's exactly the wrong opinion. Rava only said that in Reb Shimon ben Elazar that makes a difference. In Rabbi Shmuel, we did not make that distinction. We said that Rabbi Shmuel held clearly only wool and linen. It was the other opinion that held that. The Gemara says, Hadabei Rava me'ahi. Rava retracted from his previous answer, and he gave us this answer now. Vibayasema. If you want, you can give another answer. Harav Papa Amra. This is an unbelievable Gemara. Here we're saying that some statements that we have in the name of Rava are not really Rava, it's really Rav Papa. Because Rav Papa was such a great student of Rava, that some things that we have in Rava's name are actually Rav Papa was saying it. So we have a Rava that said it before. Here, what we said, Rava is answering, this is not really Rava, it's really Rav Papa that's giving a different answer. And it's called Rava because we would confuse Rava and Rav Papa. It was a great student. We have this sometimes, we say, Amar Rava, v'itema Rav Papa. Rava said, and some say Rav Papa said. We have that sometimes. And the reason is because Rav Papa was such a great student of Rava that he didn't know what was from Rav Papa himself, what was from Rava. Okay. And Rav Papa Amar, Rav Papa says, Af kol, when the pasuk said, I don't have the pasuk in this Gemara. Where was it? Malahalon Tzemra Pishtim, Afkol Tzemra Pishtim. No, there was a pasuk as well. Kol Beged, maybe. Maybe that's what it was. So the word kol is lasuye kalayim. That when it comes to forbidden mixtures is also only if it's wool and linen. The Gemara says, that you're using a word from the pasuk to tell that to me, an extra word. Kalayim be'edik sivibe. I know what kalayim is. Kalayim, it says clearly in the Torah. Lisil b'shatnes tzemra pishtim yachtav. It says, don't wear shatnes, forbidden mixture. That's wool and linen together. The Gemara says, no. Sal kadai t'chamina, could have entered your mind. Over there it says, hani mili derech levisha. It says, lisil bash. Don't wear it. When you put it on yourself as a clothing. Avol bahala, but just to put it on top of you, not to wear it. Maybe like a sheet or something. Kol tremini yaser. Then I would have thought that's more strict. I would have thought any mixtures are forbidden. Everything needs to be pure. I can't mix this material with that material. Gemara says, 1 second. Alav kal v'chaymer. That's counterintuitive, because you would say, Malavisha dekamasani kula gufa. When it comes to wearing, you said mikalayim, that your whole body is enjoying the mixture. Amrit tzemru pishtimin midyachrin alai. You said that it needs to be only wool and linen. That's the only thing that's forbidden. Halal kolshkin. So you're going to say that putting it on as a sheet is going to be more strict? It's the opposite. Something that you're wearing should be more strict. And now you're telling me that putting it on a sheet, I would have thought any mixture would be forbidden. I would have thought silk with this, polyester, I don't know. All of those materials would be forbidden. And even though you're not wearing it, it's the opposite. It's when you're wearing it, I could have thought that I would be more strict with other materials. And by wearing it, the pasuk clearly tells me that it's only wool and linen. Now, Rashi goes through why Rav Papa is saying this, what the gain is, what he's doing with the Oya Beged back on the top. But the Gemara says now, Elader Rav Papa Bedusi, we have to take out what Rav Papa said. We won't be able to accept this answer that the call is coming to tell me, Kalayim, that there's other things that are forbidden. I'm sorry, that I need a pasuk to tell me that kalayim is that I need a word call to tell me that kalayim is only by wool and linen. That I know anyways. Okay. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, Af kol lasu yitzitzis. The call is coming to tell me that when it comes to tzitzis, it needs to be either made out of wool or made out of linen, and you can't use any other materials as the garment of tzitzis. The Gemara says, tzitzis behediksiv, leisil bashatnas, tzemeru pishtim. Don't wear shatnas, wool and linen, uksiv gedilim tasalacha. And it says you should make fringes. Now, that tells me that, what do I make the fringes out of? I make the fringes out of the wool and linen. So that means that I know that the garment and the tzitzis need to be made out of either wool or linen. So the Gemara says no. That wouldn't tell it to me enough. Sal kedait chamina kedurav. I could have thought that you could learn like Rava learned. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, don't learn like Rava. That's what the pasuk kol is telling me. Pasuk is telling me, don't learn like Rava learned. The Rava Rami, because Rava had a contradiction. Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, hakanaf. There's an extra word in the pasuk. It says, al kanfe bigdayim, hakanaf psil tcheles, al kanfe. It could have just said, v'nasnu al tzitzis psil tcheles. Didn't have to say the word hakanaf a second time. But the extra time it says it is min kanaf. It's coming to tell me that I can use whatever my garment is made out of. That's what I can make my tzitzis out of. So if I had a cotton garment, I would make tzitzis out of cotton. The type of material that the corner is, that's what my tzitzis are. Uksiv, but I have another pasuk that says tzemro pishtim yachdav, that says don't wear shatnez, wool and linen together, and it says you should make the tzitzis, which tells me you make the tzitzis out of either wool or linen. So now I have a contradiction. One verse says I make it out of whatever my garment is. The other verse says it has to be wool or linen. How do you fulfill both of those verses? So the Gemara says, if my fringes are made out of wool or linen, then that will cover any other garment that I have. Cotton or silk or all of those. Shar minim, but if I have tzitzis made out of other materials, cotton, silk, b'minam paichin shleib minaim paichin. Cotton tzitzis will only exempt cotton garments. Silk tzitzis will only exempt silk garments, not silk on a cotton garment. However, tzemer pishtim, that wool or linen, that could be put on any sort of garment. We have cotton tzitzis all the time. I think, those old, those talesim, you go to these old shows and have like a thin, like scarf talis. They felt like they were silk. I don't know I don't know if there really is. Could be polyester. But the tzitzis on it were also had that shine to it. So let's say you put wool tzitzis on that garment, that would for sure be kosher. I don't know if it was the size, whatever. If wool tzitzis on a regular cotton tzitzis, you put the wool fringes on it, that would be kosher. If you put cotton tzitzis on a wool garment, that won't work. According to Rava, that's what Rava is saying. So comes along, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, he says, don't go like Rava. Sal kadaitach kid Rava. I could have thought that we can accept Rava, that we can use cotton tzitzis on a cotton garment, and that will resolve a contradiction in the verses. The answer is, Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, no, don't accept Rava that cotton tzitzis on cotton garments works. You can only have tzitzis that's either wool or linen. No other tzitzis is going to work. Okay. Kamash Mallah, not like Rava. That's why in Chabad, they're strict. They try to wear wool tzitzis. It's based on the opinion that tzitzis, it's not considered a beged unless it's wool, based on this. Other opinions hold no, it's cotton. It's very common. Other Chassidim wear cotton tzitzis. Okay. Rav Acha Brei Rava Ravashi. Rav Acha Brei Rava says to Ravashi, Latana de Rabbi Shmuel, according to the Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, Maishna Linyan Tumah Demar Mishar Begadim, the Ksiv Ay Beged. This is all according to Reb Nachman. According to Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak, that just said this, right? This is Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Before we said that we do have Oy Beged to include larger size garments, larger size Shleisha Tvachim from other materials. We learned it from Oy, that was Rava held that. So why did you do that only for Tumah? We have that you will cover yourself with. We have a pasuk. That's an extra pasuk. Could tell me that other garments should also be chayiv and tzitzis. You have to put tzitzis on them. There's two sides to that. One is yoy to the mitzvah, others that it's chayiv and tzitzis. According to Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak, it's not chayiv and tzitzis b'chlal. A cotton beged. It's not chayiv. But maybe I have an extra pasuk to include it, just like you included from an extra pasuk for Tumah. So the Gemara answers, Hahula siyik huda asa. That's coming to tell me that a blind person has to put tzitzis on his garment as well. Titania, because was taught in a brisa. Uri isa maisa. It says you shall see the tzitzis. Pratlik sus laila. That's coming to exclude a garment that's worn by night. Well, we had a machlekes, Rashi and Tosfos. If it means wearing a day garment at night, or if it means pajamas, a night garment, whenever you wear it. You say that it's only excluding a night garment, that's exempt from tzitzis. Maybe it's excluding the garment of a blind person that is exempt from tzitzis. So when the pasuk says that you will cover yourself with, then we know that a blind person needs to put tzitzis on his garment because he also covers himself. So what do I do with the pasuk that says you will see it? A blind person doesn't see it. Seems like he's exempt from the mitzvah. That's prat l'ksus laila. That's excluding pajamas. So I have an exclusion and an inclusion. The exclusion is you see it. I have two options. One is night pajamas, it's dark, you don't see it, or a blind person doesn't see it. And I have a shet chasaba, that's an inclusion. I have two options. It's including the garment of a blind person, or it's including pajamas. So which one yes, which one no? So far we just established that a blind person has to put on tzitzis, but pajamas are exempt. The Gemara says, why did you choose the blind person should be chayev and the pajamas should be exempt? You could do it the opposite. The Gemara says, the blind person, his garments are still visible. Everyone else can see it. He happens to be, he can't. But I exclude pajamas because no one else can see it. Okay. Maybe you should be using ashet chasaba not to include a blind person's clothing, but to include other materials. Mistabra, the Gemara says, koi betzemer upishtim mar betzemer upishtim koi betzemer upishtim mar b'shar begadim. If we're talking about wool and linen, and then we have an inclusion, we're probably including some sort of wool and linen, not some other material that we weren't even talking about. Okay, so that's Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak's answer. It says tzitzis could only be wool or linen, and that's what we learned from the word kol. And we have a limud of ashet chasaba. We say that can't be including other materials. That's just including a blind person needs to wear tzitzis, needs to put on tzitzis on his garment. Okay, let's leave it over here.